Well, let us interrupt you here on Thursday, July 27th, 2023. I am live. I'm in my kitchen. I've been live in my kitchen now for the last few days here. It's the only cool place I can actually do the podcast because my man cave is like a desert up there. I might as well be in hell trying to do that podcast up there if you think I'm going to try to go up there in that man cave. You're out of your mind. Temperature upstairs in my room, 98 degrees. That's how hot it is in the room. Heat's not on. It's just it's a ranch, so it's 2 floors. Really, technically, it's 3 because the basement's the bottom floor. But I mean, let's be realistic here at this point. It's a lot cooler down there. The Wi-Fi, though, surprisingly, not as good. Not as good as in here. Although right now, if you're seeing me right now and my face is glitching and crazy, a lot of crazy is going on with the Wi-Fi. You'll understand why in just about a second here. As I just got home just now, my phone blew up from CBS Sports, which I thought I shut off the notification on my phone, but I didn't. Apparently, it came on for a reason, and it's a good thing I did because it's what I'm going to be leading off with today, which is Jalen Ramsey was carted off the field during training camp practice. Report it was a left knee injury. He hobbled to the sideline. Then he got carted off the field. Very worried, according to this one of the safeties for the Miami Dolphins. According to he was very worried about Jalen Ramsey, and it's not good. It's not good for Jalen Ramsey at this point, to say the least here, with his situation. And I got to say, it's very surprising at this point on how that's whole played out. Very surprising indeed that their first day of training, this might be their second day of training camp, actually. And not even within 24 hours, not even 4 hours, the guy is hurt. He was covering Tyreek Hill on a route. He tweaked the knee. He hobbled. He had to get help off the field. It's very concerning. It's possibly he may have torn his ACL. And if that's the case, I really have a hard time believing that Miami makes a playoffs this year. I really do. And I got to say, you're looking at that offensive line. Tua, no one's really fully buying into him. And now you got Ramsey, who's out possibly for the rest of the year with his ACL injury. It's terrible. It's a terrible feeling. It really is. And that is your number one defensive back on the team who you just got in the trade from the Los Angeles Rams. And the first thing he does as a Miami Dolphin, when in the first 2 days of training camp, he may have possibly torn his ACL, tore his meniscus, tore whatever. It's not looking good. And that sucks big time for the Miami Dolphins. I had them pegged this year to make the playoffs. I don't even know now they'll make it out of last place. I think this puts the Patriots right back in the conversation right now for the playoffs, although I don't think it does. I think Cleveland and Pittsburgh or whoever might take that role, but we'll see deep down the line. I don't see how the Dolphins are a playoff team this year. I really don't. I think now at this point with one defensive back on, and Bradley Chubb's overrated. I got to be honest. The guy's overrated. He's not the next Von Miller. He's not, he was in the shadow of Von Miller when he was in Denver, and he's trying to make it here on his own. It makes no difference. I don't think he's the top linebacker in the entire league. I just don't think he is. I don't think he's that guy that's the it factor of defenses. There are at least 5 other defensive linebackers that are better. I would say, for one, I'll start with Devin White, Levante David. Bobby Wagner is another one as well. Let me think about who else is on that list here. Devin Bush, I would say, is better. Matt Milano, I think, is better. Von Miller's better. Matt Judon, I think, is better than Bradley Chubb. I mean, I just named 7. I just named 7 right off that list. And I think now, and he's not really a Von Miller blitzing machine. He's not like a Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs type. He's not. So this is why this is going to hurt Miami in the worst way possible. The Miami Dolphins this year are done. I don't see how they make the playoffs this year. You got Cleveland this year. That's going to be tough this year. You got realistically now, I mean, here's the way I look at it. Here are your possible playoff teams. The Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I guess the Ravens and Jets are more like in at this point, but let's be realistic here. The Browns are more likely in the conversation. The Indianapolis Colts, even though at this point now, anyway, they're not really proven this year. But that rookie could shine And it could all be a big difference in the world at this point for the Colts this year if they do make a deep run. It could be Houston. Houston's a dark horse in this whole thing. The Houston Texans look like they're an 8-9 team ready to sneak right in there late. There really are a lot of teams that could be cracking down at this point. And if this is not as serious that it's sounding like at this point, I don't know if having a less than 100% Jalen Ramsey would work out, unless you're going to wait to the end of the year like they did last year with the Bucs did with Ryan Jensen, how he came back practically towards that playoff game last year, which was all for naught because they lost by 17 anyway. I mean, if they're thinking of doing the exact same thing here, I don't think that's going to work out for Miami either. I really don't think it's going to. It's not going to make that much of a difference. I don't think it's going to make any bit of difference at all, especially now where it's like, at this point, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for Jalen Ramsey. And this could not happen at a worse time. You had all the momentum at this point. The Patriots looked like they were, people were buying into them. They didn't get the DeAndre Hopkins signing. You could have got the D-Hop Jalen Ramsey matchup this year with Tennessee and Miami this year. You could have gotten that late December. That may be going out the window. I mean, there's a lot of things that is hurting the Miami Dolphins at this point now. The fact that Tom Brady couldn't come out of retirement, to help them out at quarterback, that also sucks. I mean, there's a lot of things that have hurt the Dolphins this year at this point now. Their owner at this point, not believing their head coach, the rest of the team is at this point. That could be a turning point right now where the players might start to revolt. I mean, against their actual head coach here. Otherwise, I mean, it's been very, very disappointing for the Miami Dolphins. Like, up to this point, they got rid of a lot of key talents too. Getting rid of Mike Gillespie, that was a boneheaded decision. I think sending him to your division rival was also a boneheaded decision. But, it's a point for us, being as a New England Patriot fan that I am. So it's a point for us. That's how I look at it. And now you get the fifth-year option sort of pickup, really, not really, but I mean, that 1-year cheap deal, which that means they really want Tua to prove it this year or he's done. Despite them picking up that fifth-year option, it doesn't matter. So it's not looking good for Miami. And Tua's health at this point is an issue. I mean, I don't blame this on Mike McDaniels at all. I really don't. I don't think that he should get blamed for this issue at all at this point. I don't think he's the key reason why that Brady wouldn't come here anyway. I think Brady did want to come here if it felt right. But if he thinks he's a washed-up version of himself, then why is he going to hold a team back from them succeeding with a different quarterback? So, I mean, to me, but now at this point, you need a defensive back at this point. You could have gotten Marcus Peters at this point. The Raiders now signed him for a 1-year, $7 million deal. So that completely changes things. I think I already mentioned that on the show Tuesday. But yeah, he did get his deal. And I'll get more into who got into what deal in just a second here. OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., announcing that this is his could possibly be his final year in the NFL. This may be his last. This season with the Ravens right now could be the best season yet because it could be his last season, which is what he quoted on his. I actually have the quote right here on my Instagram page. If I can just open it up really quickly on here. I just when I first heard about this injury, I was stunned by Ramsey, by the way. But this right here is also stunning. I mean, for a guy at this point that literally. Which I thought I had it on here. I guess I don't have it. I thought I had it in my story here. I didn't save this in my story. It just get removed from my thing. Did my Instagram get hacked again? God, I hope it didn't get hacked. Yeah, I don't have it on here. Let's see. I thought I had the news on here about OBJ possibly retiring here. Was that just a fake rumor? I hope that was not a fake rumor because that was another lead up to my thing. Yeah, I can't find the article. That's very embarrassing here. That's unfortunate. That does kind of annoy me though. That OBJ rumored at this point to be retiring, because it was. I guess this was a post and a deletion. I guess because I literally did see this post and I did like it. So I don't know. I don't know if it was not liked at that point. If it was just removed. It was just a fake rumor at this point. I don't know what the case may be. But he's closing out on retirement, I think, OBJ. I mean, he's been in the league now for about 9 or 10 years. His knees are not the same. I mean, he's not going to be the guy at this point that makes, leaping catches into the end zone anymore. I mean, those days are over. If I could find the post here, it would be a good leadoff here. Yeah, that kind of does disappoint me, though, that he could be possibly on the retirement plan here for the Ravens here. And for 1 year at this point, I don't know if Lamar Jackson's worth the 5 years because of his health issues as well. Odell Beckham Jr., look, it's 1 year, $18 million. Is it a boneheaded decision? It's a little bit much that the Ravens have to spend for that, but it is what it is. And if this is possibly the final season here, which I'm very surprised I did not find that on here, then that's very surprising, to say the least here. And I thought I had a story about it on my Instagram. I know I did, unless it was posted yesterday. That's why I didn't save. I don't know. Anyway, very surprised I didn't go into my story at all as of today. But anyway, Justin Herbert got his 5-year extension with the Chargers. This is what he had said afterward here. I never wanted to be anywhere else. This is where I've wanted to be for shoot as long as I've been born and playing football. It's a dream come true. That's after he got a 5-year, was it $262.5 million extension with the Chargers. And I got to say this right now about the Chargers here. And this is just my opinion about the whole thing. What amazes me is that they were never going to cut this guy to begin with. And here they are. Because really, let's be honest at this point. They let Justin Herbert go. They were never going to get Caleb Williams. They were never going to get anybody else. They weren't going to get Lawrence. They weren't going to get Joe Burrow. The story here really, though, is what does this mean for Joe Burrow? Does Joe Burrow get the extension that he wants at this point, and does he get more than Herbert? I think he does. I think he tops. Really, he tops Herbert and Mahomes. I think he gets $350 million. I really do. I think if he takes that team to another AFC title game and they go back to the Super Bowl, then he's getting the extension. I think it doesn't matter if he wins this damn thing or not. I think in reality, if he's going to do exactly what he did last year, which is practically, they should have won the AFC title game last year, really, if you think about it. But, I mean, here's my theory. If he does it again here, but this time makes it to the Super Bowl, I think he gets the extension. I think if he's short of that, let's put it this way. If they somehow miss the playoffs and Burrow has a terrible year and it plays like in 2020, like comes out flat and plays like rookie version of Joe Burrow, not the elite version of Joe Burrow, that may be a problem. That may be a problem. Otherwise, I think Joe Burrow deserves this deal a hell of a lot more than Justin Herbert did. I don't know. I mean, for a guy that played like an MVP through the first half of the year and then completely crap himself later on in the season, I just think that doesn't deserve a 5-year, 2-year, $262 million extension. Wait until the last year. Wait until he can prove himself. I mean, otherwise you give him a cheap deal, like a 2-year extension from the previous deal. Otherwise, at that point, I don't think Herbert deserved this deal. That's more like a Joe Burrow deal. That's not a Justin Herbert deal. Herbert, to me, I don't think he's overrated, but it's the Chargers. They are just a desperate team to cling on to something and trap him, like Ohtani is trapped right now with the Los Angeles Angels. I mean, that's just me. That's just how I feel about that whole thing. Let's see. We got some other news today. Cole Kmet, this was earlier this morning, got his 4-year, $50 million extension. I thought it was 3 years. 4 years, $50 million with the Chicago Bears. This is basically the guy that took Jimmy Graham's job and basically turned himself into Jimmy Graham. He morphed himself. I don't know. This guy is, I think, a tad bit overrated. I don't think he's really one of the top tight ends right now in the league. I don't think he's in the top 10. I don't think he's in the top 20. I think he's maybe top 30 at best. 4 years, $50 million extension. That was just a cling on to the only weapon that Justin Fields really can rely on. And that's the reality. There's no other way. The wide receiver core they have right now is DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. That's it. Chase Claypool, overrated. Not that good. That's your wide receiving core for Chicago this year. And you know who's to blame for that one? Matt Elvers. Matt Elvers. The useless coach that he is at this point for that Chicago Bear team. Why he got the job? Because nobody else wanted it. That's the reality. That's the reality. Aaron Rodgers took a pay cut signed a new 2-year, $75 million guaranteed deal with the Jets through the 2024 season. He's going to stay with the Jets as long as past that 2024 season. I don't see that guy going anywhere else. If anything, he's got a better chance of winning with that team, because if he takes the Brett Favre route and goes with the Vikings, I mean, you're in the same limbo. You got to get by a bunch of teams in the NFC. It's not as easily convenient like Brett Favre had it in 08, 09 when it was just him and the Saints. That's it. I mean, that's all there is to it. Brett Favre should have stayed with the Jets at this point, because he could have won, and he could have competed against Tom Brady twice this season, but he didn't. Aaron Rodgers here, the only thing he's going to worry about now, and he's got less worry now not facing Jalen Ramsey this season, possibly. That's worry less. God, I got to phrase this right. It's less worrisome now at this point if you're Aaron Rodgers. You got, and the Jets, really, I'm surprised, actually did this. This is actually the smartest business decision that this ownership has ever done, as far as realizing at this point, hey, what the bleep are we paid for here? And realistically, this could be a trend where they're really just not believing in keeping Aaron Rodgers long-term and trying to develop Zach Wilson in the side. I mean, I get if that's what the plan in this whole thing is, but realistically, let's be realistic here. Zach Wilson's not a capable starting quarterback in this league. He can't stay focused. And the reality of it is he lost his job like twice in the last 2 years. He lost it to Mike White in 21. He lost it to Mike White again in 2022. There's really no other way of justifying it, really, other than the fact right now that he crapped out on what he had. He really did. I mean, there's really no other way of looking at it. He crapped all over himself in New York. And Robert Saleh is not the coach of that team. I don't think anybody could have coached Zach Wilson. And I got to say right now, realistically, Nathaniel Hackett at this point is going to be the one that does a play calling for the Jets, which is probably the only good thing I can say about this right now, because he can trend to Aaron Rodgers. And I think Nathaniel Hackett got a rough time in Denver and got real, whipped by Russell Wilson and his lackeys, because Russell Wilson controlled everything. That's it, even the play calling. Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett were always on the same page, which is why. And I think Sean Payton had every right to rip him anyway, because it's saying like he had no balls, which he had no balls in Denver. Here, he has balls, because the difference is Aaron Rodgers respects him. And he felt bad about what happened in his time in Denver. I think anybody would. For your first time coaching, and this is how it turns out, and he looks like a worse version of Adam Gase. I mean, I don't know what else to say here. In fact, realistically at this point anyway, if I had to say right now, who I would rather have, Nathaniel Hackett and Adam Gase at this point, or Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett, I'd say Adam Gase, because at least then at this point, because Hackett and him have the exact same way of thinking. The difference is Aaron Rodgers needs to straighten both of them out and get their ducks in a row for both of those guys. That's why I'd rather have both those guys. You're not going to fix a defensive coach who's defensive-minded. You're not going to. That organization, though, the ownership, though, was kind of smart enough to realize, hey, we can't overpay. We don't have the cap money to pay this guy this much money. I mean, we already had to give up Elijah Moore. We're not giving him any more talent here. And it's true. That's the reason why Elijah Moore was really traded. Because if that contract would have happened a lot sooner, you probably would still have had Elijah Moore. You would never. You didn't have to trade that guy back in April. You could have cut that contract even then. Why now, though? That's the question on everyone's mind at this point, is why now? Why at this point now are we doing this contract cutting now? It doesn't really make a lot of sense if you think about it. What sense does it make? It doesn't make any sense at all. In fact, it's probably one of the weirdest timings that I could think of at this point. Started training camp, and he agrees to this whole thing. They're calling it as an extension. I mean, it's just he takes a pay cut. He's getting $35 million this year and getting $40 million next year, instead of what he would have been getting, which was like an extra $200 million, which is basically what he would have gotten. Realistically, there's no other way of justifying this other than the fact right now that he just took a pay cut and made the owners realize that, you know what, we really should have never traded away Elijah Moore. We should have just done this from day one. Now they did it here, and they got it out of the way before, because this is what they would have done. They should have would have went through it for the Elijah Moore thing. This would have been an ongoing conversation throughout the year. They would have gotten Aaron Rodgers disgruntled. Rodgers would then have no choice, because nobody else would have wanted the guy because of his freaking weird thing he does during the offseason. And this would have been like a story in October, probably the middle of October, week 7, week 8 kind of deal conversation. That's what would have happened. That's what would have happened in reality. So this doesn't really surprise me, really. Nothing really does in these days. John Ross, the former first-round draft pick in 2017, was that. Let me start that again. Former Cincinnati Bengal first-rounder, I should say, as well, in the 2017 draft, has announced his retirement from the NFL. Is going to choose to hang up the cleats at this point. This is a big, I wouldn't say a big loss, but it's kind of odd at this point of the timing of it. This guy was committed, playing this season in the NFL, couldn't wait for training camp. And here he is now, not even, 48 hours later, and he's retiring. All in a time where Chris Jones still isn't showing up. The Chiefs have had to fill in the holes. George Kalafis said he had to fill the holes. Kadarius Toney's deal with a knee injury at this point. He's not back to week 1. And it's at this point now you're down another wide receiver if you're Kansas City. I think at this point now, depending on what happens with Elijah Moore, and here's my theory, is I think Elijah Moore at this point in this whole Deshaun Watson, Cleveland Browns stuff right now, it ain't working. I haven't heard one thing about Elijah Moore in Cleveland at this point. I've heard Amari Cooper tweaked his leg. That's really about it. I haven't heard anything else besides that leg injury that he's had at this point. I don't know how serious it is because he also had to get carted off the field. But I feel like Elijah Moore may step up here, and this could be a case where either Elijah Moore steps up right now and takes another one rep at this point, and somehow Amari Cooper gets cut, or Elijah Moore, doesn't do much of anything with Deshaun Watson. He's probably seeing that the whole weird distraction and the GM saying that everyone's job's on the line at this point. And it's like, oh God, that includes me too. And he just can't live up to that pressure. I mean, he couldn't live up to the pressure in New York at this point. How's he going to live up to the pressure in Cleveland? So he may get cut. This may be a case where the Kansas City Chiefs come in and snag him, and he could be another wide receiver on this team. And that would work out perfectly. You still have Justin Ross, the former Clemson Tiger. Also the former Green Bay Packer, too, who recently got cut. Not too long ago. I'm pretty sure he. Or no, was he? Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm thinking of Amari, not Amari Cooper, but Amari Ross. I think his name was. No, Justin Ross was a 2022 draft pick for the Clemson Tigers, and that was the guy that had to play with DJ Dugali in 2021. That guy, who I think draft stock dropped because of that quarterback's play in general. My spit just got all over that screen. Don't you just hate that? Yeah. There's more training camp news, by the way, just on the horizon of this, just FYI. Just based off on what I've heard here. Let's go back up here. Oh, I lost that now. I'm just getting an update now at this point. Somebody just graduated with a 3.95 GPA from Full Sail University. I'm not sure who it was, but to whoever that was that graduated. Let me go back to that page for a minute. Tim Thomas. This just popped up in my timeline for Facebook here. Graduating on August 28th with a 3.94 GPA. Tim, congratulations. Well deserved. I hope everything works out for you in the foreseeable future for that. For your time in Full Sail. That's great, by the way. I'm happy for stuff like that. I'm actually surprised that popped up in my timeline, and I don't even follow this guy, so I have no idea where that post came from. Let's see. We have more NFL news to get into. Let me see. I know I had something on here really quickly right now. I got some other stuff popping in my timeline as well. Really quickly. Anyway, so let me see what I got here. Oh, yeah, Mac Jones and Bill Belichick. So they are beefing right now. So there was a recent report, recent decorum, that happened between the two of them. Mac Jones was in a press conference saying, quote, things are getting back to normal at this point, where things are looking up at this point. For us right now, time to move on after what happened. I'm paraphrasing at this point what he's saying, but. And Bill Belichick got on the press conference and said, he was asked, has he moved on from what happened last year with Mac Jones? Like, yeah, we've, I've gotten, I'm looking to move forward with all the other players, and not naming Mac Jones here, basically. Which I'm telling you right now, at this point, Mac Jones and Bill Belichick just don't like each other. I'm just going to flat out say it. They just don't like each other at all. That's a fact right now. They hate each other. And I think realistically at this point, if that chemistry is the reason they lose the season here, and especially now after what you just heard now with Jalen Ramsey, with him possibly tearing his ACL this year and the Dolphins sucking this year, if this is the reason, and you guys can't get along here, that's a problem. And that means one of them has to go. Now, I just can't imagine a Robert Kraft chosen person, who, by the way, was chosen by Kraft. This was not a Bill Belichick choice. I can tell you that right now. This was not a Bill Belichick choice from day one. This happened in Bill Belichick's lap. This was Kraft, and everyone say Saban and Belichick call each other. I look at it like this. There's no friend. Like, I don't think Bill Belichick calls anybody at all unless it's a defensive player in the draft. I'm just going to be realistic here. I don't think he does. He hates quarterbacks, so why the hell would he call them? He's not a quarterback guru. He's not a quarterback whisperer. He's not. He's not the one to call Tom Brady in the 6th round either. In fact, you know what? That was Robert Kraft that called him too. So I'm just going to put this in perspective here. Bill hates quarterbacks, but this may be the biggest pain in the ass in Bill Belichick's life at this point. There's no other way of saying it at this point. I don't think he hates anybody else more. It's painfully obvious. He able to bury his beef with Tom Brady, that hug, and Bill finding him in his locker room, that conversation that no one could believe. I couldn't even believe that conversation happened. But here, this needs to happen. If there was a time for a sit-down conversation where Bill Belichick needs to go to find Mac Jones in the locker room at the training camp or whatever the case may be, because I feel like now at this point this hasn't happened yet, and there's not a one-on-one to talk here, heart it out here, talk it out kind of stuff, apologizing after that horrendous season that he had last year, having Matt Patricia and Joe Judge be the one that plays the calling here. That time is now, and if that time doesn't happen right away soon enough, this is going to be an ongoing saga, a big distraction, and it could end up potentially getting Bill fired. More realistically at this point, Bill could just quit. But Robert Kraft would have to take the power at this point. See, Robert Kraft at this point has to take the initiative and say, hey, we need to end this as soon as possible because this is getting to the point now where this is ridiculous. And it is. This should not be happening. Period. That should not be the story now going forward this year. But it is what it is at this point. And until that happens at this point, until they actually, everyone's all buying in. Matthew Slater's saying we're all buying in. Matthew Judon's buying in. Juju Smith-Schuster's buying in at this point. He caught some pass for Mac Jones the other day, and he actually looked pretty good the other day, Mac Jones. Had a touchdown, threw an interception to Kyle Duggar. Pretty good day. You know what was an interesting day today, though? How the 49ers performed in training camp as of yesterday. So they had their first training camp yesterday. It was here was the quarterbacks that were going for the competition here, which I didn't even know this name was in there, but here it is. It's Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, and Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen, by the way. Yeah. Here's the amazing thing about this whole thing. You can click on the post real quickly here. Every pass was thrown here over scrutinized by the coaches when they gathered immediately at the practice, as well as by the media. Lance was 6 for 9. Darnold was 5 for 8, and Allen was 3 for 6. And the 7-on-7 action. No touchdowns passed among them in that scenario. When Shannon was asked about this whole thing, he said, quote, I don't expect a lot. Show us they haven't gotten worse while they were gone. Close quote. This is interesting now at this point because Brock Purdy didn't throw yesterday. So here's my takeaway in this whole thing because I didn't get the day 2 notice on Wednesday. I had to figure this out through the Twitter page of the 49ers and then get it from the Mercury News, which is out in San Francisco. But anyway, I heard about this, and the first thing that popped in my head is that Brock Purdy was on the sidelines. It might as well be the offensive coordinator here. But my theory was this. Trey Lance looked great with the number ones yesterday. Would Brock Purdy not be in that practice? Here's my take. That kind of tells me now Trey Lance might win the starting job. Brock Purdy was cleared 2 days ago. Actually, no, I'm sorry, 3 days ago. He was actually, was it? No, it was Tuesday. Tuesday he was cleared. So it was 2 days ago. So I guess he must have thrown today at this point. This is only day 1. I don't really have the day 2 results on here just yet. I can't pull it up right now. But the fact that this guy was practically available and did not throw yesterday, and Brandon Allen had a throw. It's interesting. It really is interesting. I cannot believe it. And right now, I'm not seeing any. Here's another trending news at this point. This is also trending news. Tyreek Hill looks like he's not going to be retiring in 2 years. Walking back to retirement talk, says conversation with his dad led him to ponder life at this point. And his father is telling him to stay unretired. If your father at 20-something years old, 30 years old, has to tell you to not retire, there's something going on in that picture there. But anyway, I just had to say that because I thought that was trending. Here's some interesting training camp news with the Patriots. Juju Smith-Schuster sees heavy workload. Spars with Christian Gonzalez. By the way, I can't find the 49ers stuff right now, so until I find that day 2 observation, which obviously I think it's happening right now. I probably won't even get it until tomorrow. Day 2 of their camp was today, so I'll probably get that day 2 of that tomorrow. Here's what it was reported by Tyler Sullivan. This was posted 6 minutes ago. Second day of the Patriots training camp featured a heavy workload from arguably the highest profile free agent in the club brought in this offseason. Juju Smith-Schuster, a veteran wide receiver who signed a 3-year, $33 million deal with New England in March, was peppered by quarterback Mac Jones during one of the more competitive periods of the day. Similar to day 1, the camp, the Patriots almost exclusively worked on their red zone offense during the more competitive 11-on-11 period. There was a stretch where Jones zeroed in on his new weapon, targeting him 4 out of his 5 dropbacks. They were able to connect on 2 of those at throws as Smith-Schuster sparred with first-rounder corner Christian Gonzalez. That's more of it. That right there is actually pretty interesting here. The fact that he was only able to connect on 2 of them is because of Christian Gonzalez's coverage. That's pretty interesting. And what was the most entertaining aspect of Thursday's session? Later during Jones' second series in the 11-on-11s, he again found Smith-Schuster, who was able to beat a second-year corner Marcus Jones for a touchdown. While Smith-Schuster has worked as one of the New England's top wideouts thus far in camp, there was a noticeable uptick in targets on Thursday, which may have been intentional. After all, the 26-year-old missed key period of offseason program. He was rehabbing a knee injury he suffered during a Chiefs Super Bowl run last season. Also, the fact that he had a little video game tournament that nobody cared about. That happened. With that in mind, it makes sense that there may have been an emphasis for him and Jones to push the pedal over the early days of camp to quickly begin building up on a report. This needed to happen one way or the other. This needed to happen at this point. So I like this. I like this a lot that Juju Smith-Schuster is getting the reps he needs to get here in order to get back in full mayhem mode here and be the one that saves Mac Jones' career, because he's basically the one guy at this point that can turn this whole thing around. And let everybody forget about Jacoby Myers. Is that a lot of pressure on this guy? Absolutely. Is he going to get the comeback player of the year if it works out for him? Probably not, because realistically, he played all year. He did. He did play all year last year with Kansas City. So it's not, and he won a Super Bowl last year. So it's not like it's not like this guy doesn't know what he's doing at this point. He knows his role. He's now the number 1 wideout in New England. He was the number 1, really, if you think about it, he was the number 1 wideout when Antonio Brown had his mental breakdown in Pittsburgh. He was the number 1 wideout in Kansas City because, let's be realistic at this point, they had nobody else at the time until they got Kadarius Toney and Richard James. And then, if you think about this, here's the other thing that really gets me. He's now the number 1 wide receiver here in New England. Really, at this point, was there any likelihood that DeAndre Hopkins was going to be the number 2 behind Juju Smith-Schuster? Could that really been the issue here? Because it seems like here he's treated more as a number 1 here than anything else, and I think that's what's happening here. You know, that's all there is. That's all there is to that. I mean, I look at that and I say to myself, you know what? He probably wanted a 3-year deal. He probably didn't want less than 2 years. He probably didn't even want less than 3 years, really. He probably wanted to top this guy and get special treatment. And Bill said no. To that, I say, I think the Patriots might be still in trouble of not getting both D-Hop and Juju Smith on the long haul here. And you let this guy go to Tennessee. That could still be troublesome. But Ryan Tannehill is not a good quarterback. And right now, he could be in competition right now with Malik Willis and Will Levis. So he's got enough on his freaking plate. Mac Jones at this point has nothing to worry about at this point after the first 2 days of training camp. This may be the first best 2 days he's had in the last couple of years. Let's be realistic. His job is safe as far as I'm concerned. Saquon Barkley says an epiphany is what led him to bypass the whole-out plan to attend Giants training camp, which explains why he got the contract that he got, which was a 1-year, $11 million deal and a $2 million signing bonus, which means he's getting $13 million. Look, he got the deal that he wanted. It's more than 10. It's more than 11. Let's move on. So there were other reason for it. There really is no other reason for that. I hear this and it's like, really? We got to talk about this again? It's like, seriously, enough already. Enough already. Let's see. We got some, we got some more Mac Jones trash talk here. Former veteran defensive lineman now and current Atlanta Falcon, Calais Campbell, saying Mac Jones is trash, which I find that to be hilarious. And you know something, at this point, after playing the first time at this point and watching him play against the Ravens, it's like maybe he did think that way because look who he had. Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. And I was the one that hyped those guys last year. I will admit that. I do feel like an idiot for hyping those two jackasses up. But in reality, it's so unbelievable. You know, it really is. It's really unbelievable at this point that, you know, of how much disrespect Mac Jones really got. And really how worse Mac Jones got at the end of the year. You want to know what it was at the end of the day? The whole drama shift from Matt Patricia and Joe Judge sucking to Mac Jones just stopped trying and whining like a little bitch and throwing temper tantrums and losing most of these games. And they were bad play calls. It was bad all the way around. And that's why Calais Campbell called him trash. This could be Mac Jones's waking up moment. 3rd year, all the pressure's on you. You're not going to get the extension that you want. This could be the year where you can shut everybody up. I'm just saying. And even shout out one of the greats right now in Calais Campbell. I'm just saying. Because right now he's stuck with the Atlanta Falcons. Although the Falcons may be good this year. They could be good this year. You never know. Although it's Desmond Ridder, so who the hell knows? We got some more extension deals. Titus Howard signed a 3-year extension with the Houston Texans. 3 years, $56 million, according to CBS Sports. Good on his part. Giants signed Andrew Thomas to a record-breaking 5 years extension worth $67 million guaranteed. That's awesome, by the way. Awesome that he got the extension that he wanted. And, you know, and that could be the problem with Saquon Barkley's contract issues at that point. I mean, that's what it was. Here's the thing. Andrew Thomas was a number one important guy, other than, you know, teaming with Nate Soldier at the time in New York. But I think Soldier might be still there. I don't know if he retired or he's still there. I don't know. But Thomas was the next man up at this point to take Nate Soldier's place because he was playing at left tackle and left guard. The guy's a good offensive lineman. He's probably one of the better guys they've had in a long time. He did get his deal that he wanted, and I think he's worth the money. I don't think he'll crash and burn this whole thing, and the Giants made the right decision on signing for that deal. Excellent signing. Excellent signing again. Matt Judon does not want to retire anywhere else but New England. He said the other day, quote, "I don't ever want to leave." Says he wants to retire as a Patriot. Good for him. I think he will. I don't see him going anywhere else. And I got to say, realistically, if they do let this guy go, that's a big no-no for the Patriots. And that's really the other saving grace as well at this point. You do not want that guy to go anywhere else, period. You just don't. Sean Payton rips the NFL gambling policy after a slew of suspensions. Shame on us, he said. Based on a gambling policy. I got to say right now, Sean Payton at this point, and I gotta say this right now about press conferences and stuff like that. When was he ever like the Rex Ryan of smooth? You know what I mean? When like overconfident, ripping people. He's having fun with this. Maybe this is what Sean Payton needed to do in the first place in New Orleans. Maybe he was just handicapped. I don't know. To me, he seems like he's more free now at this point. Like he's got a personality at this point. Sean Payton, I got to be honest at this point, knew he was on his way out the door in New Orleans. Here in Denver, who the hell knows what the story is? But I think it's amazing to me that this guy rips the like he's ripped the NFL more times now as a Denver Bronco head coach, and this season hasn't even started yet. I just noticed that, like the noticeable trend here that I've watched with Sean Payton this year. I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, this is a guy that didn't even pay a fine from a COVID thing, and I don't think the NFL players even paid for that either. So I mean, this is a guy at this point that's taken advantage of the NFL at every turn at this point, and I love it. I love this guy. I kind of wish this guy was a head coach right now for the New England Patriots right now. He would fix his team right up. Hell, he would freaking turn Mac Jones' career around. I think. Everyone says he's going to turn Russell Wilson's career around. I look at it like this. He's waiting for Russell Wilson's contract to come to a close so he can get rid of him. Because realistically, I don't think Russell Wilson's good enough for this team. I don't think Jared Stidham's good enough for this team either. If you want my honest opinion, the Denver Broncos, if they really – I mean, they could turn it around this year and they could step up and stuff like that. Maybe it could be a big turnaround here. But I look at that whole scenario playing out right now in my head. It's like, I don't know. That team's not that great. I don't know. Like it's just, it's like New Orleans in the beginning. Like they didn't have much there. They had a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees. This is what I think of when I see the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton. That's what I think of. It's like the 06-08 Saints. They weren't that great. They were 11-5. They won the division in 06, but in 08 they were nothing. In fact, they kind of overachieved that year. We're gonna be perfectly honest. Without Drew Brees in that team and Sean Payton was there, I don't know if they would have had a quarterback, but I don't think they would have made the playoffs that year. I don't think they would have. If it wasn't for Sean Payton and Drew Brees, I don't think that team that year would have even had more than 2 wins. Look at they quit the coach they had before that. He ended up being a loser at the end of all that. He really kind of did. Not going to lie. He really did kind of end up being a loser there. Travis Kelce almost got Taylor Swift's phone number. He was talking about this on New Heights at this point, but he got caught blocked by the security. His friend tried to get the number for him. I guess he was good friends with Taylor Swift, but the cop blocking security guards. You gotta hate that. You gotta hate that if you're like fangirling over a hot singer like Taylor Swift is. You gotta hate it. You gotta hate it at this point. It's kind of annoying, really, if you think about it. I hate it. I know that for a fact. I will say this though, on this whole thing, I wouldn't be surprised if these two were to hook up. And to me, they look like they would have good chemistry. When I think of Swift and Kelce, I kind of think of Camila Kostic and Rob Gronkowski. I don't know. I lean towards more of that really. Again, I think that's just what makes this whole thing interesting at this point is that could be a love connection. And it could be a little trend this year where Taylor Swift could possibly be in the Super Bowl performance at this point and perform in the Super Bowl. And maybe the Chiefs make the Super Bowl this year. Maybe Travis Kelce hooks up with her before that time, and that happens at this point. She sings a song at the Super Bowl, and he decides to go out there and watch his, future girlfriend, if it does happen, perform. I really wouldn't mind seeing that at this point. I kind of hope it happens. I really do. I kind of hope it's a thing. I kind of hope it's a really good thing. So Big Ten Media Days were happening I think this was yesterday, I believe. This was all posted yesterday. Northwestern football players chose not to attend due to the hazing scandal. I think they really just did it just because Pat Fitzgerald was fired because of it. They already fired the head coach at this point. What more can you do? I mean, they can fire the athletic director department. The problem is, who's going to step in? Look, you got to feel bad for these players at this point. These are former players that made this rumor. But if they're not showing up for media days, that's a problem. If they're not showing up for spring practices or summer practices, that's also a problem. They might not even have a football season this year because of these former players that were violated 20 years ago. Why come out with it now? Pat Fitzgerald, by the way, at the time, was never really the head coach of that team either. So I think they should have gone out to the older staff that was there before him. But to say he was an understudy for that team. So it's not like this guy was made well aware of it, was the one who created it. I think the fact of the matter is that he got a 2-week suspension, which that was weak as well. I mean, I know it's a occurrence from 20 years ago and stuff like that, but knowing about it for all these years, you take it. I would say look deep into facts first, but then don't suspend him. I think they just fired him because they thought that Northwest was going to suck anyway, and it didn't matter who's coaching that team. But Braun at this point said that Fitzgerald supposedly knew, when in reality, Braun was the one that knew about it because it was offensive linemen and defensive linemen that were doing it. And he was a defensive coach. And it was more in the trend of defensive linemen doing it one week than it was the offensive linemen doing it the other week. It was called the loofah line. I thought it was disgusting. That image is scarred in my brain. It's just it's like every other high school hazing that you would possibly would see this. It's almost like prison at this point in the prison showers. That's what I would describe that as. Which now that I mentioned loofah line again, now I can't even have it said to me in person. If anyone comes up to me and says loofah line, I might just barf right in front of you. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And now these players aren't going to show up now for the media days. That's pretty bad. That's not good at all. I already mentioned about Jim Harbaugh's suspension yesterday for 4 games. By the way, this was an interesting trend, by the way. Very convenient time when he does get back, though. Matt Rule's big debut as head coach against a Big Ten tough conference in Nebraska. I think it's in Nebraska. It might be in Michigan. I don't even know if they're playing in Nebraska or Michigan. But that's when Matt Rule will be facing Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if they're just trying to hype this up this year, but nobody cares about college coaching here, okay? This suspension, the recruiting, the COVID stuff, lying to investigators, lying to the NCAA investigators, lying to the NCAA office executives, just seemed weak. You know, it really did. And the more I think about it now, it's like the trend of this gets a lot worse here. The fact, and here's why I go back to the Pat Fitzgerald stuff, the 2 week suspension, and then ultimately him getting fired. The firing is a way over the top kind of thing. Actually, a lot worse. Pat Fitzgerald, I think, should have been suspended for at least 1 game for that. I think he should have been, because if he did know about it and he's well aware of it, and maybe he was trying to pay off the player to shut his mouth, maybe that's why they fired him. But suspend a guy for 1 game. Harbaugh's suspension should have been more than this. And he should have definitely missed the Michigan State thing, too. Speaking of that, according to 24/7 source, Mel Tucker commented on Michigan State rivalry. He's attending people not to go to the game. This is what Mel Tucker also said here. The biggest game of the year for the Michigan State. That's what he also said here. 9 months after 7 of his players were charged for their roles in the post-game altercation, Tucker said he's not sure how to cool a rivalry that boiled over the last fall at the Big House. How do you rein it in? I don't know how you do that, Tucker said. There's not a day that goes by that I haven't heard something about that game. I mean, every day of my life, I hear about that game. So I don't know how you rein that in. It just is what it is. There's no excuse for what that happened. There's no excuse for it. That's what's great about college football. By the way, and I actually take that back now at this point. Now the more I think about it, to have 7 players on 2 players after the game ended, to jump your player, that's way over the line. And I actually read the quote wrong here. Mel Tucker thinks it's passionate at this point of what those players had. He commended them. To this I say, this is a stupid thing. Don't say that. You got 2 players jumped after you lost the game. That's pathetic in the Big House last year. Going back to their locker room. That's pretty pathetic. You call that college football rivalry? It's a rivalry when it's everybody going at it at once, not a pack of hyenas attacking 2 people. What the hell's that? I heard it was the Valentine show, by the way. That's why I made a mistake on here. That said, don't go to the game. It's gonna be a bloodbath right now at this point, and it's gonna be it's gonna turn basically the fans, Michigan State and Michigan fans beating the crap out of each other. That's what I meant to say in the thing. It wasn't really Mel Tucker that actually said it. He can't rein in it, so he can't discipline the players. He can't discipline the players. Really. By the way, at this point, he's still got a long way to go in that contract. I think he's got about, 4 or 5 years left in that contract. That may be taking down the years down just a little bit after that comment. I don't know. It just seems like to me after the game, it makes no sense. I mean, in the locker room, really? 7-on-2? I don't know. Or was it 7-on-1? Was it 7-on-1? I think it was. I think it was 7-on-1. I think that's what ended up happening here. That aggravated me to no end when I heard that. That really did. And it's unfortunate. It really is. It's really unfortunate they actually that he said it like that. I get you're passionate about the team and stuff like that. It's Michigan State, Michigan. I think the infield fighting after the game or throughout the game is more entertaining than watching 7 guys just pounce on a player that no one even cares about. Like, that to me is just stupid. That's more like hazing more than anything else. That's not needed. And I cannot wait for Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan to get their revenge on Michigan State. That I really can't wait for. Because I think this year they're Michigan State this year. So we'll see what happens. That should be interesting. Ex-Minnesota football players, staffers allege toxic culture under Coach PJ Fleck within the program. This is what was said. It was described as Coach PJ Fleck's program as a cult to front office sports, alleging that program's culture is fraught with intimidation and toxicity. Among the allegations are that Fleck interfered with medical protocols by seeking for injured players to return earlier than anticipated and by minimizing the seriousness of some pretty horrendous injuries, according to one player quoted by FOS. The story also details a system devised by Fleck called the Fleck Bank, in which players could rack up a goodwill, circumvent the repercussions of failed drug tests and other violations. This guy's a great role model, let me tell you. And I'm saying that sarcastically. Minnesota Athletic Director Mark Coyle voiced his support for Fleck's program in a statement to the front office sports. PJ and our program are unique, Coyle said. They put themselves out there in a new and different ways, but always in a first-class manner. And after nearly 7 years, it's clear to me that it is what makes PJ and our program so successful post-school. Really? Your program is successful. Let me ask you a question. What the hell has this guy done in 7 years as a college football head coach in the Big Ten? I'm curious. Have they won a Big Ten? Have they won a big-time bowl game? I'll tell you what they've done. They've done nothing. They might have won a few bowl games there and there, not meaningful ones. Not to make the Big Ten so proud. This program at this point, to allow players, despite failing their drug tests at this point, play these games, rush them back when they're not 100%, and creating a goodwill thing, which means nothing. It means more money in the pocket for PJ Fleck. PJ Fleck, I think, if you want to talk about, I wouldn't even say that's even a cult, honestly. I wouldn't even say this is a cult. You want to know what this is? It's slavery. There's no cult in this whole thing. There's fear and toxic behavior going on. That's all this is. Because the players don't have a voice. And the athletic director goes right along with it in this whole thing, making a successful program, meaning more money in your pockets. That's all this means. It's more money in your pockets. If that's a team that you want to talk about a team that should be going under NCAA investigation, forget about what Jim Harbaugh did. PJ Fleck in this whole thing is the one guy I would say, you know what? This guy's pathetic. He should be fired from his job or suspended for more than 2 games this season. Give me like 6 or 8 games at this point. If you got former players and staffers that are saying this stuff right now, airing out the dirty laundry here, Mark Coyle could be suspended for the entire year as an athletic director, and he could be suspended without pay. That could be another big punishment right there for him going along with this stuff like this. This is ridiculous. I mean, what Jim Harbaugh did was, I would say, stupid, lying and lying and lying time after time at this point, and still doing it. And look, the reality is the only reason why I say, suspend this guy for 4 games is ridiculous because of how long he lied for. This is years and years. This has been way past the firing period at this point for PJ Fleck. It really is. This is years and years of abuse to force these players to take ridiculous drug tests, them left and right. There's no freedom there. You can't do drugs, but you're going to play anyway because we're not going to punish you. Even though really they don't want to play at all because they're only doing drug tests anyway and drugging themselves for painkillers at this point because of the serious injuries they're going through. This is what's so sad about the college football at this point. It used to be fun. They're not having fun. This is taking years off their careers. Even the staffers. You might as well say that right now, the staffers at this point that get injured in the sidelines, they take drug tests too. Why? To get a final way out from that toxic environment, which is PJ Fleck Bank. They want to withdraw their funding from the Fleck Bank. The bank is staying open. They're not closing the account. And it's pathetic. It's really, honestly pathetic that this is how their program is run. It really is. It's absolutely asinine on how their program is run and how they just get away with it. There's no punishment here at this point. Oh, there's got to be some evidence. When you got players that are calling this the Fleck Bank and even staffers, that's enough evidence right there to terminate this guy before the season even starts. And Coyle, who goes right along with it, goes, oh, this is what made our program successful. Really? It's what made it successful. How many Big Ten titles have you won? How many Big Ten conferences have you clinched? You haven't really clinched that much. So to me, shut up about your system. The flex system has got a problem. And the problem is they don't care about the players. You might as well be calling this the NFL. You want to talk about the running backs in the NFL who have problems. This is a problem for the Big Ten altogether. All the players. I wouldn't be surprised if next week if there were more media days next week and Minnesota decides, you know what, we're not going next week. This may be killing the Big Ten. I don't know. First it's Northwestern, then it's Michigan, now it's Minnesota. Who's next? Ohio State again? And that ridiculous bowl game ban, whether they went to come on, give me a break. And I hate these freaking suspensions all year long, suspensions for coaches and stuff like that, and they're forced to terminate the job. It's stupid. When they build a winning culture there, and it was never a problem. This right here is a problem because at least at that point, you follow the rules. Jim Harbaugh at this point was going to get another job last year because he couldn't stand the athletic director, and the athletic director didn't even like him. And the reality of it is, he only did it to get the athletic director fired, when all in reality, it blew up in his face because it was more evidence that went against him more than anything else. Because the athletic director is just as much as on this for Jim Harbaugh as anything else. They're all dirty, as far as I'm concerned. They're all dirty. The PJ Fleck thing, though, is a lot worse than what Jim Harbaugh did. And maybe that's why you got the 4-game suspension, maybe. I don't know. But I think you should would have gotten 6 or 8 games. You take him away from those big-time conferences at this point, that's more of a punishment. Those 4 games don't mean anything based on a scheduled competition and stuff. That's why I had an issue with that. This I have an issue with right here because this guy should be fired. There's no other way of looking at it. This guy should be fired. Period. No other way of justifying that. There's no excuse. No excuse. Rob Manfred for Major League Baseball as the commissioner. He is our commissioner, unfortunately. The idiot guy who loved the World Series so much because he got absolutely hammered in Texas. Got a 4-year extension through the 2028 Major League Baseball season. I got to look at it like this. The only reason why he got his job back is because baseball games are shorter now with the time clock and the pitch clock and all that stuff right now, and how successful it became. That was a Rob Manfred idea, by the way. This was not an owner idea. This is not a fan idea, player idea. All Rob Manfred. And I got to say, probably the only thing I can think of at this point to come up with that he actually did good. And that Global Life World Series thing, that was a positive too. Alternate World Series. Good idea at the time with COVID going on. Can I understand why they did it in Texas? Because there's no rules in Texas at the time with COVID. Either that, there was no rules in Florida either. But, there's no rule in LA really either. But LA just had more problems. Anyway, and nobody cared in LA anyway, which is why Texas was better. But that alone is the only reason why this guy got an extension to his contract. He's extended to 2028. That's good news on his end. I think at this point he's done a redeeming job at this point. I don't think he's redeemed himself more than Kraft did by basically, Goodell. Although you could say Kraft and Goodell are one and the same, right? They burn things, they burn evidence. Spygate stuff, which that was a dumb rule by Goodell. Let's be realistic at this point. But Goodell redeemed himself too. Goodell redeemed himself with the with the firing of Dan Snyder. So that was another redeeming factor. You had the NFL draft from home and all that during COVID and all that. At the time, you had the MLB draft from home as well. A lot of good things that Manfred and Goodell have done at this point, which I can't believe I'm actually even saying here, because I actually despise these guys so very, very much. I really do. But congrats to him. Well deserved that he got the recognition that he had coming to him anyway. And he did. He had got a lot of good recognition coming his way anyway. And for him to have that clock thing, that fixed Major League Baseball in a good way. Did it fix viewership? Not so much. Is there still trending downward intents in certain games? Yes, that needs to be looked at deeply. And we'll see what happens now going forward. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Ohtani today threw a complete game. And as the trade deadline team begins trade deadline buying, Shohei Ohtani threw a shutout game against the the Tigers. He's not leaving the Angels, by the way. Him was the final line at this point, 9 innings, 1 hit. Almost had through a complete game no-hitter here, although he did allow 3 walks. He did allow 1 hit. 8 strikeouts in a 6-0 win over the Detroit Tigers today. And I think that he took the 2 out of 3 series against the Tigers, I want to say. So that was that. The Red Sox swept the Braves. What a shock. They swept the Braves, winning 5-3 today. I'll give you some more stuff on that in just a second right now on the scores and stuff like that. They won 7-1 Tuesday night. In fact, let me give you all the scores right now as I pull it up here really quickly here. Hold on. That was the NFL news. I got the Major League Baseball news right now. Angels win 6-0. They're now 53-49. They had a postponement on Wednesday for the Angels game. Tuesday night they had a pretty good rally. They won 7-6. If the Angels win tonight, they sweep the doubleheader and they sweep the series against Detroit. Tuesday night, the Mets beat the Yankees 9-3. Phillies beat the Orioles 4-3 Tuesday night. Guardians beat the Royals 5-1 Tuesday night. Red Sox had the 7-1 win on the Braves on Tuesday. Mariners beat the Twins on Tuesday in Minnesota 9-7. Cubs beat the White Sox 7-3. Giants beat the A's 2-1. Dodgers beat the Blue Jays on Tuesday night in 10 innings 8-7. Reds got the win over the Brewers 4-3. Nationals beat the Rockies 6-5. Astros got the 4-3 win over the Texas Rangers, and the Diamondbacks beat the Cardinals 3-1. That was all on Tuesday. So last night, this is what happened. Guardians beat the Royals 8-3. Blue Jays won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers 8-1. Pirates beat the Padres 3-2. The Philadelphia Phillies beat the Orioles 6-4. Yankees beat the Mets 3-1. Cubs beat the White Sox 10-7. The Red Sox beat the Braves 5-3. Giants beat the A's 8-3. Nationals beat the Rockies 5-4. Marlins beat the Tampa Bay Rays 7-1. Cardinals beat the Diamondbacks 11-7. They won 2 out of 3 against the Diamondbacks. The Brewers beat the Reds 3-0. I think they took 2 out of 3 in that series, I want to say. The Rangers avoided sweep against the Astros. They won 13-5. And so far today, there's only been 1 game on today. And the other games that are on later on tonight is Nationals Mets, Cubs Cardinals in a 4-game series in St. Louis, and the Cleveland Guardians at the White Sox at home. As the White Sox lost the series to the Cubs in a 2-game sweep. For Friday, you got Yankees and the Orioles. You got Garrett Cole against Rodriguez. That should be an interesting pitching matchup. The Phillies will be taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates at PNC Park. Lucas Glitto, who was traded from the Angels traded from the White Sox to the Angels, along with Reynolds Lopez for the minor league pitchers, I think, and some other players as well. We'll be taking on the Toronto Blue Jays we'll be taking on Galito and Gosman. So what a debut. I mean, just traded yesterday, and now 2 days later we'll be flying to Toronto to face the Blue Jays. That'll be interesting to watch. Max Scherzer doesn't look like he's going to be going anywhere with him at all this year. He's staying with the Mets. He's pitching Friday against the Washington Nationals. Cubs Cardinals have game 2. The Guardians White Sox have game 2. Mariners are at the Arizona Diamondbacks. You got the Texas Rangers at the San Diego Padres. Reds are at the Dodgers. The Boston Red Sox taking on the San Francisco Giants. Very interesting matchup there. A lot of playoff implications are in those games for both those teams. Late July, very important stuff right before the trade deadline on the 1st of August. The Detroit Tigers are at the Miami Marlins. The Milwaukee Brewers are at the Atlanta Braves. The Minnesota Twins are at the Kansas City Royals. The Tampa Bay Rays are at the Houston Astros. And the Oakland Athletics are at the Colorado Rockies Friday night. So that should be a very interesting pitching, nice little series there. Although, let's be honest, the A's suck and the Rockies suck too. So it's 2 suck-back teams. That should be entertaining, though. It usually is. GM says keeping Shohei Ohtani gives the Angels a chance, which it does. I think realistically the Angels won't suck as much. Plus, you still have Mike Trout. That's still a good duo. Shohei Ohtani is going to get an AL Cy Young Award this year unanimously, and he might get AL MVP unanimously. This could be a first for double awards for that guy. That guy is on a roll, as far as I'm concerned. On a roll, and he's not slowing down anytime soon. I gotta say though, it's kind of disappointing because I think it would have been interesting to see if Ohtani would have done something for the following: the Blue Jays, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, because those 3 teams right now could use a boost in the American League East Division. It could be interesting to see him as an Oriole too. Orioles and Phillies were trying to get in on him. They're saying now he's not getting moved. And after today, do you blame him? Because obviously that complete game right there was really up with that trade move there. In reality, it didn't. Anyway, so that's that. So that trade happened with Gallardo as well. I think that Dodgers Dodgers and Guardians swapped Syndergaard and Rosero. So Rosero will be going to the Dodgers. Noah Syndergaard will be going to the Cleveland Guardians, which he's on a trajectory to retirement anyway. And to retire with Terry Francona as they both go out. Never thought I'd ever see that possibly happen. But Francona in and possibly Noah Syndergaard going out, I never would have ever pictured that in a million years. Shane Bieber out until September with an elbow injury. So that's interesting there. That does get a lot of people talking. There was a lot of NL East trade rumors. Bellinger being eyed at this point. Let's see. Aaron Judge injury report there. Marcio Lucino getting called up. He'll be making his debut tomorrow against the Red Sox. Let's see. Corey Seager got an injured thumb. He's on the IL right now, which is not a good thing to hear right now if you're a Ranger fan, because that means now the Astros might get a chance to clinch it at this point. Other than that, Carlos Santana went to the Brewers thanks to the Pirates trading the division rival of Milwaukee. Not really much else to say in baseball news. Tim Anderson and Dylan Cease looking like they're going to be traded, most likely the Yankees and more. Weighing in their options. And if one of these guys get moved or they both get moved, it'll be interesting. I can only see one getting moved, and that being Tim Anderson, because Tim Anderson at this point has been a long-time White Sox. He's experienced a lot of failure in Chicago. He's been wanted out of that franchise for a long time. Dylan Cease needs to build that roster up. That's all there is to it. And if he ends up going too, I would be surprised. I would be. You know who should also be going? Somewhere else at this point. And I hate to say it, but it's kind of the truth here. If I'd be realistic right now on this season right now and how it's been going, Trevor Story. Trevor Story needs to be going somewhere else. He needs to be going somewhere else at this point to a clinching team that's better. There's at this point, I'd say give him to Detroit. Give him Detroit. We get some prospects back from Detroit, draft picks. That's it. At this point, I actually would rather have Tim Anderson at this point. In fact, if anything, I would rather send Trevor Story to Chicago and get Tim Anderson back and possibly even get back Benintendi. I'd rather have his contract at this point. I would. Bring them both back. I don't see why you don't have that at this point. Dylan Cease at this point, look, in reality, it's a veteran. It's a free agent piece you can pick up next year. There's more. You don't bring a young guy in there like that for a rental. At least you bring in an old veteran there for Anderson. But that right there, and Anderson's a good shortstop. So I don't see why they can't bring him in. I really don't get that at all. I don't get why you wouldn't bring them in at this point. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't. It's actually one of the dumbest things at this point. You actually bring a piece in like that at this point to help the team out, and Anderson's one of those pieces. I think there's something wrong there if people think that that's a bad move. I don't get that at all. I really don't. Mookie Betts was in the news the other day talking about how he wanted to stay in Boston for his entire career, but worthy offer didn't happen. In reality, he's telling the truth, because in reality, John Henry and Tom Warner and Ian Kennedy and Sam Kennedy were just done with it. They were done with it. John Henry didn't like Mookie Betts' attitude. He thought he was bigger than the team. In reality, he didn't want the contract to be a distraction to both Bogaerts and Devers, which at the time they were not really that fully established at that point anyway. Devers really wasn't. Bogaerts and Betts were more established than Devers was. Let's be realistic here. That World Series was more about Bogaerts and Betts building a dynasty with the two of them. Devers just happened to be the one guy on add-on here that happened to be on that team. And I think realistically, he was the one guy that I think has made a difference now since Bogaerts and Betts left, but it's not enough. They could have brought him in, and they could have settled on a nice deal, and Betts at this point could have helped this team win a World Series. Hell, he could have been the difference maker than winning the World Series in 2021. I think that he would have won a World Series in 2021, and he would have won a World Series last year, instead of where they're at right now at this point, which was Verdugo being a complete a-hole. And then, it just everything about that. And to say that he was bigger than the team, I think is kind of ridiculous at this point. Oh, I thought someone was in my yard. It's actually across the street. But to say, here we go. We got some breaking news. It's not news I really want to hear. Boy, that's not good news. This is getting worse and worse by the minute. Joe Burrow carted off the field with an injury, a calf injury. Very bad news as far as I'm concerned. That is bad. You want to talk about the weirdest time at this point for injuries to come left and right here on a day like today. This has been an ongoing thing this week, is news and news and news. I don't know. This is what happened here. After seeing Jets wideout Garrett Wilson in Miami's corner suffered apparent injuries early in the day, Bengals fans are now holding on their breath after seeing correct Joe Burrow car out the practice field on Thursday. On a play in the later stages of practice, Burrow was scrambling to the near side of the field, pulled up lame, suffering a non-contact injury. After being tended to by members of the team training staff, he limped over to the cart and was driven off the field. Oh, boy. Shortly after the practice concluded, Bengals coach Zach Taylor told reporters that Burrow has suffered a calf injury. Burrow, who's entering his fourth season, has reportedly been close to signing a contract extension, him potentially making the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL. Oh, my God. Herbert at this point may have actually – Mahomes technically is the most paid, highest-paid quarterback. Right behind that is Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson. Actually, I think it's Lamar Jackson and Hurts, I think. So that's that as far as contract goes. That's a big blow. That injury right there is a big blow. If this is actually serious at this point, then I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but if somehow Joe Burrow doesn't come back this year, I think the Cleveland Browns win the AFC North. If this isn't the closest thing to a saga that is the Cleveland Browns organization at this point, I don't know what the hell is. But that team could be on the cusp of winning the AFC North. And right now, I don't wish anything on Joe Burrow at this point. I hope this guy makes a recovery at this point. But could you imagine how big of a story this would be? This would be an 0-17 type of year for the Bengals. They somehow get Caleb Williams or maybe the Cardinals train to get him, or it's something along those lines. Because I can't imagine anybody else taking Joe Burrow's place. I can't. Unless Chad Henne comes out of retirement and plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. That would make headline news. That seriously would. This has been a week of crazy news, I got to say. Absolute insane news this week, I got to say. It's like wow at this point. Joe Burrow gets carted off the field. Jalen Ramsey gets injured. What the hell is going on? Mitch McConnell suffered a stroke this week. Joe Biden bumped his head. Now the doctors are calling him brain dead at this point. They're saying now at this point that Joe, doctors have actually told him that he's not fit to be president. This is a crazy week. I got to say, I went back to work. I didn't expect a lot of these stories to come out this week. Jesus Christ. That's big. It's been a big week. Let me tell you. Bud Light laying off 400 employees because of the Dylan transgender bullcrap. I mean, what is going on? What is going on? Unbelievable. That's all I got to say. I kind of wish Mookie, but here's one thing. Here's my take of the day right now, back to the Mookie Betts stuff. I kind of wish Mookie Betts were to come back. I hate to say it. You bring back Benintendi, you get Tim Anderson in there. Mookie Betts just opts out at this point. He's missing the Red Sox at this point. Being with the Dodgers is not the same thing. He's not the guy there. He's not the face of that team. Ironically, it's still Clayton Kershaw. You want to know who else it is at this point as well, which is kind of amazing to me, and he just left the team? It's Justin Turner. If anything, Justin Turner becomes a free agent at this point, or you trade him up right now there to trade deadline, you bring back Mookie Betts. I mean, what happens? Bellinger goes right back to the Dodgers, maybe? I don't know. But it does get people thinking. It does. Maybe McCutcheon ends up going to the Dodgers, maybe leaves Pittsburgh. I don't know. Because Pittsburgh right now sucks. They might as well just disband. They might as well just move out of base. They're not a baseball today. They're not. But Mookie Betts, though, I mean, that he wanted to stay his entire career in Boston, but where the offer didn't happen. Does he feel that way now? I think he's played at potential, but I don't think he's played at the potential of a long-term arrangement deal. Look what's happening at this point. Xander Bogaerts wants to go back to Boston. Now Mookie Betts wants to go back to Boston. Who's next? Terry Francona, does he want to go back to Boston? I don't know. You know what I really want back in Boston more than anything else? Theo Epstein. Not only as a GM, as an owner. I want to be both. I wanted him to take the Jerry Jones role, but the only difference is he'll thrive. He won't say he's bigger than a team. He won't say anybody else is bigger than him. Is not bigger than him. He has not that big of an ego, and he cares about the sport. He's passionate about baseball, that guy. Although he could be going with a commissioner's job. That right now is a battle between him and Joe Torre. So that's a wait and see kind of thing. So we'll see. There was a story that happened as of the other day. Kevin Durant said that Adam Silver smelled it when he walked into the room meeting that got NBA marijuana testing axed. This is what it started. This is where it started with. Although he said he wouldn't call himself a pioneer. Kevin Durant helped get marijuana taken off the NBA banned substance list. The Phoenix Suns forward had been advocating for this since at least 2020 and has invested in multiple cannabis-related companies. This has now made it into the latest collective bargaining agreement between the NBA and the NBPA, as reported by Shams Charania, who's a big NBA coverage guy, earlier this year. I just enjoyed that plant, Durant says, during CNBC and boardrooms inaugural game plan. I wish I had the audio for this. Sports. This was in Los Angeles. It's as simple as that. It says marijuana has been removed from the NBA anti-drug testing program, although the change started during the 2019-2020 season when the league said they would not be testing players randomly for the substance. That decision was made when the NBA resumed play in bubble in Orlando at a break caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. I got to tell you right now, this is my theory here. I'm kind of thinking that Kevin Durant and Adam Silver were smoking weed when they came up with the idea of saying Disney World for basketball. Because they could have done this outside with a bunch of fans outside in that street basketball kind of thing. I would have enjoyed that a hell of a lot more than Disney World in the Thunderdome, where the WWE had their little program until July 2021. I'm just saying. It's crazy. It's crazy that it actually happened. On Tuesday, Durant discussed his meeting with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. Quote, I actually called him and advocated for him to take marijuana off the banned substance list, he said. I just felt like it was becoming a thing around the country, around the world, that the stigma behind it wasn't as negative as it was before. Why was it negative to begin with? Because it was illegal? Because people were trying, the government was trying to create a tax bill for it and nobody wanted to pay it? Gee, what a shocker. That's why it's so bad. It was bad. It became bad when people started driving, smoking weed, getting high with it. That's why it was bad. It's a substance where it's like drinking alcohol. Only in this case here, it's like depending how strong the weed is. If you guys smoking a lot of strong weed and stuff like that, and you're not even capable of getting the hell up, you're intoxicated by the weed. You're high as a kite. You should not be driving. That's what's negative. Everything else is fantastic. There's some people that I know that smoke weed now that don't even get high off this stuff. That's what amazes me. So that's that. I had to bring that up because it was just that was on the table. It's just I just had to say this right now at this point. Adam Silver and Durant had to come up with this Disney World idea thing. Because here's the timing of it. They were discussing this throughout the NBA season. COVID happened, and then they thought of that. The Orlando bubble. Universal Studios presents the NBA in the Thunderdome. That was the stupidest idea. I'm just saying. Notice how they weren't a lot of playoff games canceled, though, even though they were all in the bubble. I don't know. To me, I would have had them stay in Universal Studios and not have contact with anybody else and go out there in Florida and play basketball on a basketball court out there. That's what I would have done. Instead of having playing a bubble with a noise controlling audio that was given by Fox Sports. That to me was ridiculous. That was asinine. Probably should have released this at this point. Dodgers had released the statement on Bronny James after his cardiac arrest. He is at home resting, according to certain reports. This is according to Sports Illustrated. This is by far the most wild week here. And it actually did start with this story this week. Very wild week as far as these stories. Our cardiologist, Mirjeg Kamerjali of Cedars-Sinai Medical Group released a statement Thursday sharing an update on Bronny James' condition after the USA freshman was transported to the hospital following a cardiac arrest on Monday morning. Thanks to a swift and effective response by USC athletic medical staff, Bronny James was successfully treated for a sudden cardiac arrest. The same read via Shams Trina of The Athletic. Mr. James was cared for promptly by highly trained staff and has been discharged home, where he is resting. We are hopeful for his continued progress and are encouraged by his response, resilience, and his family and community support. James lost consciousness prior to 9:30 Pacific time Monday at USC's basketball facility in Los Angeles. Per the Los Angeles Times, the Trojans' medical staff treated James before he was placed in an ambulance and taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Earlier Thursday, Lakers star and Bronny's father, LeBron James, issued a statement thanking fans for their overwhelming support for his eldest son. I want to thank the countless people sending my family love and prayers. We feel you, and I'm so grateful. Everything doing great. We have our family together, safe and healthy, and we feel your love. We'll have more to say when. I hate when it does that. We're ready to, but I wanted to tell everyone how much your support has meant to all of us. Hashtag James Gang, the King Crown emoji, James tweeted. I'm glad this dude's all right. And I got to say this is by far the best work I've seen any hospital, any medical group done in the West Coast. To Cindy medical staff, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think I think Cindy is like a thing through India, I want to say. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I've heard of that group before. I think they're based off in India, I think. But people that are from India, that are doctors and scientists, stuff like that, very good doctors, very good cardiology people too. Their focus is the human body right now, and to have them out in the West Coast like that could really be a boost for the West Coast medical field. Seriously, it could be. Really could be. And I gotta say, realistically, at this point, it's very interesting to hear at this point that being put on the table. But that right there is a good thing to hear. I'm glad the kid's home. They're saying at this point that his career is not over yet. They're not saying right now his basketball career is over at this point. I don't think it is now. I thought at this point now, like I heard from Flight Mike on Tuesday, with him saying that his career could be over due to that thing with the chest. But look, I mean, realistically, the Dodgers say he's home great in this stuff right now. As far as basketball goes at this point, we'll see what happens. I think he'll play now at this point. I was thinking at this point, after what I heard from Flight Mike, of what the condition was and what he got from the latest from that. But I got to say, that right there is scary. That right there is scary right there. That is terrifying to suffer cardiac arrest like that. And to have one happen 6 months out of the DeMar Hamlin one was even scarier. Like that right there was out of the blue. Nobody even knew. And there's not even a history of it in Hamlin's family or the James family. So I don't know if it's a COVID thing, what it is, but I don't even know the James family even took the COVID vaccination. Now the more I even think about it, I have no idea if they did. And they were advocates of making people take it. So I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't want to say this is karma, but I'm glad the kid's all right. I'm glad LeBron James is happy. LeBron James, I think the king thing finally got humbled. I think, he finally became a father. He left the king thing out there for although he put it back in that tweet thing. But I got to say, that guy's a great father. That's all I got to say. But this guy cared about his son. He wants his son to be okay. Even if it means he doesn't play basketball again, he wants his son to be okay. So he's not going to force this down his throat, which is good. So I'm glad the kid's all right. I'm glad he's home at rest at this point. He should get his rest. And when the time comes, if he decides to come back and play college basketball in the year 2023, we'll see what happens. It'll be a hell of a story. It will be. Lionel Messi got 2 goals in a 4-0 shutout, I believe, for Inter Miami. That means now they're 2-0 officially with Lionel Messi. And I actually got this clip right here from Pardon My Take through YouTube. I don't think they copyrighted this. This is a short clip here of Messi and his eliteness as a soccer player. Check this video out. I think this is interesting.
He is elite at walking. He's the greatest walker of all time because he actually would get criticized for it, and they did a whole study about it, and he spends the first 5 minutes. He's never, ever scored a goal in the first 2 minutes of a game. He spends the first 5 minutes just walking around, just basically figuring out the weaknesses, weak points in the defense, and a lot of times he'll be walking while everyone else is running, and his gravity, the way that the defense has to move around to him just walking, changes the whole scope of the game. Yeah, he's an elite walker. Yeah.
So that was Big Cat from Pardon My Take talking about Lionel Messi, and I think he's had Messi on his show before. But he's right. I mean, you got to walk around, see your opponent's weaknesses and stuff like that. Figure out where the weaknesses are, and for him to do that stuff like that, there's a lot of soccer players I've seen do that before. Messi is the best at it because it practically, he's not about, hogging up the spotlight, making it all about him, making his presence known. It's all about getting the players involved, but when the time comes, he strikes kind of thing. It's not about being the face of any soccer team, really. It's about figuring out your opponent. It really is. There was also some NFL news that broke out the other day. Bryce Young was announced as the starting quarterback, and all I got to say about that was this. If anybody thought for 1 minute that Andy Dalton was going to be the quarterback at this point, who might as well be the backup at this point, from starter to backup here, like Drew Bledsoe was, Tony Romo was, Chad Henne was, Blaine Gabbert was, hell, even even at one point, Deshaun Watson was at one point. If you thought this guy had a prayer of getting a starting job, you need to get your head examined. You need to check the dosage on your meds because Dalton knows his role at this point. He's not an elite starter at this point. I don't think he ever really was in his career, really. And really, if you think about it, he's not really amongst right now in the conversation right now at this point as far as where he is on the totem pole at this point for quarterbacks in this league. He went off on the Cam Newton thing, and then he was humbled by the coaching staff in reality because he was never going to get the starting job to begin with. He knew his role, and he did that. I think he did all that for podcasts, that interview. But again, I just think it's just, it is what it is. But Bryce Young's got the starting job at this point. That's great. Congrats to him. Rookie out of Alabama, Heisman Trophy winner. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes when they compete against the Saints this year. Now that they got 5-time Pro Bowler Jimmy Graham back. And he could be a boost at this point. This could be a renaissance, a rebirth in his NFL career. I'll get more into that one on tomorrow's podcast. But I got to say that could be a possible rebirth at this point of his career. I don't know. That's just how I feel. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll get more on the Joe Burrow stuff tomorrow. Him being carved the field again, that came completely out of nowhere with a calf injury. I'll be able to know tomorrow whether or not he'll be out for the year. He should be getting, I'm assuming he'll get an MRI tonight or tomorrow. But otherwise, that's scary that he apparently sustained a calf injury. That's a scary injury. That came completely out of nowhere. First with Jalen Ramsey would have possibly a torn ACL, and this guy now has a calf injury in Joe Burrow. A calf injury with Joe Burrow. I keep butchering things right now at this point. I actually butcher this, but this is what I mean, despite me doing a good show tonight and getting a lot of good stuff while we're on the air here, I did butcher some things. But most of this, though, one more thing about Mookie Betts, though. Bring back Mookie Betts if you're a Red Sox owner listening to this. Theo Epstein, if you think about being the owner of the Red Sox at this point, which I kind of hope at this point you don't decide to be the commissioner because you're going to be waiting the next 4 years anyway. But bring back Mookie Betts. Look, we had Verdugo. He was, and we still do. It's the ego on him is just too much. You know, that team needs a prayer at this point. They do. They look like a team right now that wants to be a playoff team this year. Cora's trying to make him into a playoff team now. They're trying to make him buy in. I mean, you just swept the defending World Series champs from 2021. What more can you say? But if you bring back Mookie Betts here at this point, it wipes the distaste that we had to replace it with Renfroe, who wasn't really that great, and Verdugo, who was pretty good. But I would say if you want a good outfielder, here's what I would do. You bring back Benintendi, you get him out of that contract with the Chicago White Sox, you get Tim Anderson as a shortstop at this point. You need a veteran shortstop anyway. I'd say at this point, if Bogarts wants to come back and get out of his contract with the Padres, he wants to cut bait, bring him back. You bring back Bogarts, you get Tim Anderson to go to second base, you bring back Mookie Betts, you get Andrew Benintendi to come back, you keep Verdugo around. I would say make Verdugo your DH, make Yoshida your outfielder as well. He's a pretty good outfielder, I think. You have Yoshida, you have Benintendi, and you have Mookie Betts, Bogarts, Tim Anderson. That is a stacked team in my book. Don't worry about the catching. The bullpen needs to be – I don't think the bullpen will be an issue at that point. It'll be an afterthought at that point. That team would win right there. That'd be the Houston Astros, what they are right now. Not a lot of starting rotation, not a lot of big names at this point, and their bullpen has got left a lot to be desired. That's what this Red Sox team needs to be. They need to get to the Houston Astro culture at that point. That's all I got to say about that. That right there would fix the Red Sox entirely, period. It wouldn't. So we'll see what happens now going forward with that. I kind of hope it does work out in that way. I really hope it does for them. That would be a great move right there at this point. We'll see what happens. I have my doubts they'll get Mookie Betts to come back, or Bogarts for that matter. As a matter of fact, now I think Bogarts at this point might be washed up anyway in San Diego. I think he's been out in the San Diego sun for way too long. So we'll see what happens. And John Fisher of the Oakland Athletics, sell the team. Kansas City Royals, sell the team. Yeah, those are the only two teams I got to say. Sell your teams. You suck. That's it. And the Mets at this point, as far as I'm concerned, Steve Cohen at this point, goodbye. Sell your team too. You're a completely useless owner. And fire Buck Showalter for that matter. And that's about it. I have all other things to say here. This was a pretty long show. It is now 5:01 p.m. here on a Thursday, July 27th. This was episode 174. Completely wild week. This was a wild, I would go on and say this was a wild 72 to probably about 76 hours worth of stories I've got this week. That's a lot to digest in 1 week here. Really crazy week. Again, I look at it now and it's so hard to believe at this point that we've gotten this much content, this much going on in one sitting here. That's all I got to say. I'm out. I'll see you all tomorrow. I'll talk more about Jimmy Graham's renaissance rebirth of his career tomorrow. I'll cover more on the Herbert, Jalen Brown stuff tomorrow, which was because I was going to cover that today, but all the crazy stuff kind of trumped that. So That right there is what the reason why I couldn't cover that. So I'll cover more of that tomorrow. And I'll cover more Red Sox preview tomorrow with the Giants. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I really have nothing much else to talk about tomorrow. It's just 3 stories. That's it. I'll cover Burrow's injury tomorrow if I possibly can tomorrow. Ramsey's injury as well. I'll recap that as well. Otherwise, there's not really a lot of news stories coming out tomorrow, folks. I mean, that's it. This is your recap here of the week and a wild Thursday as far as NFL training camp goes. You can follow me here on Snapchat, JLvo Sports 123, Sports Junkie. It was changed to something else the other day. I had a new friend that changed it. I don't know what it was to. I don't know if she actually changed the actual account name at this point. I kind of hope I didn't change that account. Anyway, if she did that, I apologize. I'll figure it out. My Facebook is the same, Joseph Alvo. My Instagram is Joe Alvo Boston Sports. My Bleacher Report is, I think it's Joseph Alvo or Joe Alvo. If you want to follow me on TikTok, it's Joe Alvo. If you want to follow me on anything else, email me. My email is joealvobostonsports@gmail.com. You can do a live chat thing after the show's over or during the shows. Don't be shy. If you want to type some things in there right now, if you want to like the video, want to subscribe, go right ahead. Otherwise, I am signing off. I will see you all tomorrow, July 28th. We're almost done with July, folks. We're almost back to the NFL season. Adios. Have a good night.